let them know what the state thinks about that. All this money available in a downturn as
Well,
far as real estate values.
Fair is fair, just like I said at the county commission meeting. When you speculate on property buys, and let's point this out again, refresh to our viewers, that the thought of buying property around Whiting Field started around 2002, 2003. There's a great deal of property that was bought in 2004 and 2005, and that's simply speculators. You already know what's coming.
Well, they implemented the restrictions.
Right.
Around in the 03 time frame, they implemented restrictions.
Right. Sometimes you win when you speculate, and sometimes you lose when you speculate. Sometimes you break even. So, I think it's very important, and I want our viewers to know that we're going to stay on top of this, and when it is laid out what they intend to purchase, we're going to make sure that we take a look at it, and we'll report back to you. Well, speaking of land, Deborah,
Land buys by Santa Rosa County.
Land buys by Santa Rosa County, and I tell you, I've kind of watched this.
We had an eminent domain issue come up Monday.
An eminent domain issue at the county commission meeting. The topic of this portion of the program is the realignment of 5 Points.
Just to give the board some background again, of course, the last April the board condemned this right-of-way through the Downey property. In condemnation in Florida, you pay for the property you acquired plus the damage, if any, it caused to remaining property owned by the property owner. When we condemned that, our appraiser set the total value of the cost of the right-of-way plus the damage at about $775,000. Our appraiser concluded that the northern parcel, the northern remainder, suffered some severance damage because you were left over a smaller parcel which could not be utilized commercially to the same extent the larger parcel could. However, his conclusion was that the southern parcel did not suffer severance damage. The appraisal submitted by Mr. Downey had a wide divergence. It attributed over $600,000 in severance damage to this southern parcel. So after the first part of the condemnation, we've had a couple of days of mediation, and the proposal coming from that mediation is essentially to pay another $610,000. Mr. Downey would add to the mix this other parcel which would be needed for completion of the project. It is essentially the front yard of a single-family dwelling he owns up Quintet Highway. As I've explained in a memo to the board, it's a difficult one because you had such wide disparity between the two appraisals, where our appraiser said you essentially have little to no severance damage, to their appraiser, who is a legitimate appraiser, does quite a bit of condemnation work throughout the state, said a high amount of severance damage. If this goes to trial, and if a jury agrees completely with Mr. Downey's appraisal, you would essentially be looking at a possible another $1 million of cost when you figure in the statutory attorney's fees, which are required, statutory expert fees, and interest on any judgment. If the jury rules completely for the county, considering also the value of this parcel that we would be getting, you're looking at about $135,000 for costs. So the 610 is roughly in between of the theoretical possibilities. Of course, if we go to trial, we believe, of course, it would be closer to what our position is. Nothing's guaranteed. The only people who know that for sure would be the 12 jurors who eventually get picked and make a decision in a court case.
I really don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. I never seem to have a problem when I'm heading west on Berry Hill of getting on through 5 Points, but some people felt that it needed to be realigned, so the decision was made
In 2004.
in 2004. In September the 13th of 2004,
They hired somebody.
the bid was put out. Santa Rosa County hired an engineering firm to study
Correct.
this issue.
They didn't actually decide exactly where they were going to realign it until 2006.
In 2006.
That's correct.
Exactly.
We have a gentleman who owns quite a lot of property right where the new road is going to go through.
Right.
And the county has already bought part of that property.
Right. And
So we can take a look at these properties here that Mr. Downey owns that are involved in this eminent domain issue. The first one here is on the corner, and he purchased that in January of 2005 for $550,000. This is all according to the property appraiser's website. And then this one right above it, he bought in January of 2004 for $65,000. The one right next to that, he bought in August of 2005 for $135,000. And then this one up here in the corner that Mr. Downey has offered to the county as part of this settlement process, he actually bought in August of 2006 for $115,000. And then, of course, over on the other side, we see the property that he originally purchased. This was in May of 2005. The original 9 acres, he purchased that for $1.3 million, and then the county went in and bought the northern strip there outlined, and they paid $2.45 million for that strip in September of 2007.
now, the county now owns that little strip, $2.4 million. What we find next is, and I'm making no comment, no opinion. I'm just saving you a little time. I've gone through some property records. Okay? These are all pieces of property that are in some way associated with the realignment of 5 Points.
Correct. And let's go ahead and mention that they didn't actually decide exactly where they were going to realign it until 2006.
2006.
That's correct.
Exactly.
Right.
Publicly.
Well, there were 3 options, and they were tossing. And actually, originally there were more options, and then they winnowed it down to 3. And it was 2006, mid 2006, if I remember right, when they actually decided we're going to go with this option.
Right. And let me say this
That
again.
happened to bring it right across the top of Mr.
Right.
Downey's property.
I'm not expressing an opinion here. I am simply reading documents to you from the county appraiser's webpage. We have one piece of property that was purchased in 2005. We have another piece of property that was purchased in 2006. We have another piece of property that was purchased in 2004. We have another piece of property that was purchased in 2005. And we have another piece of property that was purchased in 2007. Now, all of these, including the first piece that we talked about, are all in some way, shape, or form associated with the realignment. And there's some distinct advantages that have been given to this property owner because of the realignment of this road. For example, there's one piece here that he will now have additional road footage on, which will make a commercial piece of property much more valuable.
Although he's not actually asking to be compensated for that piece.